Capitalism is dying. Not on Wall Street, not in government speeches, but in your mind. You feel it, don't you? That creeping sense that no matter how much you work, how much you earn, how much you try to stay ahead, it's never enough. The promotions, the side hustles, the self-help books, they all promised freedom, but all they delivered was another kind of prison. They told us the system would make us happy, that progress was infinite, that anyone could make it if they just worked hard enough. But they lied. Capitalism didn't free us. It enslaved us with choice. It didn't offer meaning. It replaced meaning with consumption. It didn't create peace. It engineered anxiety and sold the cure right back to us. We were raised inside a machine that taught us to chase success like salvation, but now we're starting to see the truth. The machine was never built to let you win. Your burnout isn't a bug. It's the feature. Your emptiness isn't weakness. It's awakening. And that silent question haunting your nights, what am I doing this for? That's not failure. That's the start of your rebellion. This video is not about politics. It's not about left or right. It's about the collapse of something much deeper, the illusion that this system was ever made for human beings. In the next few minutes, we're going to dismantle the myths that hold modern life together. We'll expose how capitalism became a global religion. We'll explore why your work feels so hollow, even when you're successful. And we'll ask the one question the system fears most. What do we build when the illusion finally breaks? This won't be comfortable, but it might just set you free. So if you're tired of pretending this is working, if you're done chasing a dream that never belonged to you, keep watching. Because the end of capitalism isn't just coming. It's already inside you. They told us we were entering a new age, an age of liberty, of meritocracy, of progress without end. You've heard it 1,000 times. If you work hard, you'll make it. Success is just around the corner. You can be anything, build anything, own everything. That's the myth that shaped the modern world, and it worked brilliantly. Not in delivering freedom, but in designing a prison so beautiful you wouldn't want to leave, because that freedom you were promised, it came with conditions. If you stop even for a second, the system forgets your name. You vanish. Capitalism seduced us with the dream of personal sovereignty, but what it delivered was economic submission, spiritual erosion, and psychological warfare dressed as opportunity. Ask yourself this. Why do you feel guilty for resting? Why does your worth feel like it's shrinking when you're not online, not producing, not building your brand? That's no accident. The machine was never neutral. Picture this. A man sitting alone at 2 a.m. in front of a glowing laptop screen. He's exhausted, his eyes burn, but he tells himself just one more proposal, one more pitch, one more tweak on LinkedIn, because deep down he fears something primal, irrelevance. He was promised freedom, but instead he sold his soul for metrics. We've been trained to confuse exhaustion with virtue, anxiety with ambition, progress with speed. Like the faster we move, the closer we get to salvation. But no one asks, toward what? Toward burnout? Toward collapse? Even our joys are commercialized. You don't just buy coffee, you perform it on Instagram. You don't read books, you show your shelf. You don't live to feel, you live to be perceived. Capitalism hijacked your soul. This is what Adorno meant when he described the culture industry. It's not that capitalism sells products. It manufactures desire. It invades the subconscious and scripts your identity. You think you want that new iPhone? That promotion? That Bali trip? No. You've just been programmed to believe that those things prove you exist. That's the cruel brilliance of the system. It doesn't just exploit your labor. It colonizes your mind. And when the inner self is hollowed out, what fills the void? Dopamine hits, streaming platforms, gambling apps disguised as stock trading, relationships that aren't built, just optimized, human connection that's monetized, diluted, and repackaged as networking. Camus once said, "Freedom is nothing without dignity, but dignity has no place in a world that sees you as data, nothing more than a click, a conversion, a lead." Ever notice how the system responds when you falter? Feel depressed? Medicated? Struggle with burnout? Take a weekend trip, post it, then get back to grinding. You're not allowed to break, because breaking means you've seen through the illusion. and that is dangerous. You weren't designed to be a cog in someone else's machine, but they made you believe that purpose was productivity, that your value was proportional to your output. So you run, and run, and run, until one day you wake up and realize you've spent your whole life climbing a ladder. That's leaning against the wrong wall. There's no revolution coming from outside, not in a world where even rebellion is sold back to you in the form of NFTs and woke capitalism. You want to escape the system? There's a hoodie for that. You want authenticity? There's an ad campaign tailored just for your demographic. Everything becomes product. Everything becomes brand. Even you. And yet, beneath all of this, there's a feeling. A dull ache. A quiet scream. A voice that says, this isn't what life was meant to be. You don't want more stuff. You want meaning. You don't want status. You want to be seen. You don't want to win the rat race. You want to get off the damn wheel, but you can't say it out loud, can you? Because the moment you question the system, you're labeled ungrateful, bitter, radical, dangerous, and maybe you are. Because dangerous is what happens when you begin to reclaim your soul, when you decide that your life cannot be reduced to analytics and resumes and 5-year plans, when you choose to feel again, to breathe again, to exist beyond your utility. That's the crack in the wall, the moment of awakening. But we're not there yet, because what if this machine isn't just economic? What if it's spiritual? What if capitalism didn't just replace the market, but replaced God? You think you're not religious. You think you outgrew superstition, that gods are for the primitive, that temples are for the naive. But look closer. Where do people gather every weekend, drawn by light, by sound, by the promise of transcendence? The mall, the app store, Amazon at midnight. Where do they place their hopes, their fears, their identities? In credit scores, in investment portfolios, in the stock market's mood swings. You don't need incense and prayer books when you've got real-time analytics and quarterly reports. This isn't capitalism anymore. It's a faith. And you've been baptized without consent. Walter Benjamin saw it early. Capitalism had become a religion without mercy, without absolution, a faith with no day of rest, a God that demands sacrifice, but never forgiveness. And the altars? They're everywhere. Every glowing screen, every checkout line, every job interview where you're told to sell yourself. Think about it. The CEO is your high priest. He speaks in symbols you don't fully understand, but you trust him with your future. The billionaire is your modern saint. His story becomes gospel, rags to riches, hustle to heaven. The market is your deity, unseen, untouchable, omnipresent. When it moves, the world reacts. We don't say, I lost my savings. We say, the market punished me, as if it's alive, as if it's watching, as if it knows your sins. And what are the commandments? Obey growth, worship productivity, sacrifice rest, deny doubt. If you suffer, it's not because the system is broken, it's because you're not faithful enough. You didn't hustle hard enough. You didn't manifest abundance. You didn't optimize your morning routine or read enough business books. You want salvation? Try cold showers, 5-year plans, and a startup pitch. That's the new prayer. And when the system crashes, when markets implode, when jobs vanish, it's treated like divine punishment, a necessary purge, a chance to prove your loyalty. Keep grinding, keep believing. The resurrection will come, and we do. Over and over, we pray for promotions. We tithe through taxes and tips. We confess on social media. But here's the truth no one dares to speak. The economy doesn't love you. It doesn't see you. It doesn't care about your dreams, your dignity, your peace. It cares only for extraction, for data, for growth, and still we kneel. Even when we know it's killing us, we stay in jobs that drain our souls, not because we love them, but because they pay for the apartment we cry in. We chase roles, not because they fulfill us, but because they look good on a resume. We eat, sleep, breathe performance, all because we're scared of becoming invisible, of falling behind, of being left out of the market. Capitalism taught us to fear stillness, because stillness means no output, No output means no value. No value means you don't matter. But that's the lie. You matter. Even when you rest, even when you fail, even when you stop believing in this religion. Yet walking away feels like heresy. And maybe it is. Because to reject this economy as faith, you'd have to find your own meaning. You'd have to live by your own code. You'd have to build something that doesn't promise infinite return, but delivers actual peace. And that's terrifying. Because the system trained you not to trust yourself. You're meant to follow, not lead. To consume, not create. To conform, not question. But what if your doubts are holy? What if the tremor you feel, the discomfort, the disillusionment, isn't a sign of failure but of awakening? Look around. More and more people are feeling it. The emptiness, the fatigue, the sense that they're playing a game with no finish line. They're not lazy, they're starving. For meaning, for connection, for something real. And they're starting to whisper, what if there's another way? If this is hitting home, hit that subscribe button to keep uncovering truths like these. Subscribing means you'll never miss the tools to transform your life, and maybe even rewrite the rules of the game. Because the question isn't just, how do we survive this system? It's deeper. Who are we becoming inside it? And if we're losing our very sense of self, what else are we sacrificing without even noticing? Let's talk about that. Let's be honest. When was the last time you felt alive at work? Not functional, not competent, not on top of things, but truly alive. Most people can't answer that. Because somewhere between the office cubicles and Slack notifications, something got lost. Marx called it alienation, that eerie disconnect between the worker and the work, where labor becomes a cage instead of a craft. You're no longer creating for the joy of it. You're producing to survive, producing to prove, producing because you've forgotten how not to. But in today's world, alienation's evolved. It's no longer just economic. It's existential. You're not just selling your time, you're selling your identity. Every day, you wake up and wear a mask tailored to your job description. Your real self? It stays in the drawer with your Sunday clothes and childhood dreams. The question has shifted from, who are you, to what do you do? Because if you're not doing something, measurable, monetizable, marketable, then what are you? A ghost. This is where it gets brutal. We live in a world that doesn't just ignore your humanity, it actively replaces it with metrics, with resumes, with digital performance reviews that measure your soul in bullet points. Your passion becomes a portfolio, your creativity becomes a slide deck, your ambition becomes a brand. And the scary part? You start to believe it's enough. You start chasing likes on LinkedIn as if they were oxygen. You start tweaking your elevator pitch like a sermon, hoping someone will find you worthy. Not because they know you, but because you sound useful. Imagine a man who's lost everything except his job title. He walks into a room and says, I'm a senior product manager, but inside he's hollow. His relationships are fragile. His joy is conditional. His health is failing, but he's productive, and that's all the system asks. That is the tragedy. Nietzsche saw it coming. He warned of a world where we'd become last men, comfortable, efficient, numb. We'd stop asking why, we'd stop creating, we'd just exist, mildly entertained, mildly anxious, mildly dead. But that's not life. Life isn't supposed to be mild. It's supposed to burn. You weren't born to meet deadlines. You weren't built to stare at screens for 12 hours while your spine collapses and your spirit fractures. You weren't meant to live for weekends and wither during weekdays. But here we are, swallowing stimulants in the morning and sedatives at night, smiling in meetings and screaming in silence, running in circles and calling it purpose. They taught you to aim for stability, but what they didn't say is that stability often means stagnation. That the system isn't here to nurture you, it's here to use you until you forget who you are. And for many, that moment already came. The moment you said yes to a job you hated, the moment you silenced your gut to please your boss, the moment you laughed at a joke in a boardroom that made your skin crawl. Alienation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper, a tiny voice that says, this isn't who you are, but you mute it. again, and again, until you can't hear it anymore. So what's left? The dopamine hits, the productivity porn, the podcasts that tell you to wake up at 5 a.m. and dominate your morning, as if your worth depends on your ability to simulate happiness at maximum output. This isn't performance, it's possession. Your soul outsourced, your purpose delegated, your dreams turned into quarterly KPIs. And you wonder why you're anxious. You're not broken. You're reacting to a system that was never built for human flourishing, only for extraction. This is why so many men especially feel like they're disappearing behind a fog of expectations. Provide, succeed, conquer, but never feel, never break, never say, I don't know who I am anymore. But let's say it now. You're not crazy. You're waking up. Because alienation is a sign not of weakness but of awareness. You're seeing it, the shallowness, the absurdity, the performance of modern life. And when you see it, you can't unsee it. You start to question everything, your job, your goals, your very identity. You realize that being good at your job isn't the same as being fulfilled, that efficiency isn't virtue, that success without authenticity is just elegant suffocation. So, here's the real question. If the system has stolen your soul, can you take it back? And if you could reclaim your time, your values, and your very self, what would you build? And what would collapse if you did? So what happens when the machine breaks? Not all at once. Capitalism doesn't explode. It erodes. Quietly. Like rust in a foundation. Like a crack in the glass that spreads, until the whole thing shatters under its own weight. And when it does, what do we build from the rubble? This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because we've all been trained to chase the fall of capitalism like it's the final boss. But collapse isn't the end. It's the question mark, the cliff's edge, the void staring back. Nietzsche warned us. When the old gods die, the danger isn't emptiness, it's replacement. The worst idols are born from the ashes of broken ones. You kill the god of money, and in his place rises the god of control, or purity, or vengeance, because the mind craves order, meaning, authority, and when we lose it, we invent it. That's why post-capitalism isn't a utopia waiting on the other side. It's a minefield, and unless we walk through it with consciousness, we'll just rebuild the same prison with prettier walls. So what's the alternative? Not a new system with prettier slogans, not another ideology promising heaven for your compliance. We need something smaller, slower, something human. A return to what Spinoza called understanding. Not obedience, not progress, but clarity. A life led by awareness, not algorithm. By presence, not profit. Imagine this. Instead of measuring time in billable hours, you measure it in presence. Instead of asking, what's the roid, you ask, what's the cost to my soul? Radical, right? But maybe that's where it begins, in the tiny refusals. Refusing to define success by the size of your screen. Refusing to work 60 hours a week for a salary that funds your therapy. Refusing to sell your attention to platforms designed to keep you numb. This isn't rebellion with fists. It's rebellion in silence. It's the man who logs off. The woman who says no to another toxic promotion, the father who chooses presence over prestige, the friend who dares to slow down without guilt. And together, that silence becomes a storm. This is what I call active nihilism. It doesn't mean despair. It means burning down illusions on purpose so you can rebuild from truth. It means standing in the void and choosing meaning, not waiting for it, not borrowing it from someone else, but creating it. Daily, quietly, relentlessly. And when you do, you start to see what capitalism tried to erase. Care, slowness, depth, community. Not the performative kind, but the kind where people see you off camera. You don't need to monetize your healing. You don't need to brand your journey. You just need to be here fully, without selling yourself in the process. Maybe the future isn't about domination at all. Maybe it's about connection, not competition, but mutual growth, not ownership, but stewardship, not infinite expansion, but meaningful boundaries. We were sold the lie that bigger is better. But what if small is sacred? What if the revolution isn't viral, it's invisible? It starts in the kitchen, in eye contact, in saying no to urgency culture and yes to depth. What if you don't need a new ideology, just a different rhythm? This is what capitalism fears most, not violence, but presence, because a man who's fully present can't be manipulated. He's not chasing anything. He's not buying to fill a hole. He's watching, thinking, choosing. And maybe you're one of them, one of the few willing to ask, what happens when I stop playing the game? What will I hear in the silence? If you've made it this far, you already know. The problem isn't just the economy. It's the meaning we've attached to it, the identity we've built inside it, the silence we've kept to survive it. But what happens when you no longer want to survive inside a machine? What happens when comfort feels like control, when success feels like self-betrayal? That's where collapse begins, not with violence, but with awareness. It starts the moment you stop playing along, when you realize you don't need to monetize your value to have worth, when you stop calling it freedom just because you have options. Because the truth is simple, the system isn't going to save you, and you don't need it to. You were never meant to be a product. You were meant to be a person. So the next move is yours. You can go back, numb yourself again, try to forget what you've seen here, or you can choose something different, something slower, something real, not perfection, not a plan, just a refusal to keep selling your time, your attention, your dignity. That's where it starts. And if you're ready for that, truly ready, subscribe to stay grounded in this truth. Turn on the notifications so you don't drift back into the noise, and comment below, I refuse. 2 words, no drama, just a quiet declaration. Because sometimes the most powerful rebellion is walking away without asking permission.